Today we're going to work on one of my favorite lessons that anybody ever gave me, ever. And when you think about all the stuff that you get done when you work on this exercise, you'll see why I think it's the most effective way to learn jazz ever, because it covers so many of the things that we need to do. It covers ear training, it covers our feel, it covers this weird idea of fingering our ideas on the fly. It covers jazz vocabulary. And it was shown to me by a fantastic teacher that I had in my very first year at the Berklee College of Music, Jeff Covell. And Jeff was kind of a no-nonsense guy. I just looked it up to see if he was still teaching there by any chance. This was a long time ago. And it looks like he's not still on the faculty, but I see some of my favorite musicians are on there. You know, if you can take a lesson with Laszlo Gardoni, I advise you to try to do that. Fantastic piano player who was there when I was there, and still a mind-boggling piano player. Steve Hunt is another guy, particularly if you might be a little more inclined to play the electric keyboards. Steve is a fantastic player and I'm sure a killer teacher. So Jeff Covell, I got there and I didn't know much and I had very little going on with my left hand. And I think Jeff, his vibe is like, man, if you come here and you came, from somewhere where there was no jazz instruction, you got a lot of catching up to do. So I'm going to get you with some like a pretty serious load. And Berklee was great in every way, but I was there to learn to play the piano. So within a month, I think, Jeff had me working on this exercise. And this is what it was. I just got to butt in here. I finished this, went upstairs. My girlfriend said, "Did you remind people to subscribe and hit the notification bell?" And of course I didn't. So here I am reminding you to subscribe and hit the notation bell. I'm trying to put one of these lessons out about once every week. And if you're enjoying this content, subscribe and hit the notification bell. He had me transcribe Wynton Kelly's solo on Freddie Freeloader from Kinda Blue. And it's funny because when I started studying with Jerry Bergonzi after I ran out of money and started taking private lessons, Wynton was Jerry's guy too, because there is no better feel in the jazz piano world. Really like the standard bearer for a super heavy, way back behind the beat, swinging, wide dynamic range, rolling a triplet, everything you could want in a feel from a piano player. Super fun to transcribe. Kind of a relatively simple solo as far as, a new person transcribing it. And, if we think about everything we do just when we transcribe something like that, we're getting the lines and the harmonic vocabulary of the master. We can then play along with it. I can't put it on, I would just play it here and play along with it on this video, except looking at it, am I going to run into copyright issues? And it's like, yeah, you're going to run into copyright issues. The video might get taken down. It might not be shown in some countries and so forth. But obviously, everybody should have that record. So we're doing all that. We're learning how to finger like the master. We can definitely play along and try to put the notes in the same place. Try to ape that feel as best we can. Super difficult to do because I don't think anybody else ever did, honestly. There's a couple piano players who come to mind whose playing reminds me of that sort of super swinging way behind the beat thing. One is one that you may never have heard of, Gene Harris. I'll put a link in the description to a Gene Harris record that will blow your mind. Ellis Marsalis is a super swinging back behind the beat, similar ultra sticky feel guy. And Vince Guaraldi played really great like that. We've all heard him play the Peanuts stuff, but the rest of his records are also worth checking out. There is a twist here, though. And the twist is that Jeff had me learn to play that. We kind of worked on playing it as close to Wynton Kelly as a kid from Coos Bay who was 17 could get. And then he had me play it in all 12 keys. So from an ear training point of view, which is something that's hard to teach, it's something that we need to work on. It takes a lot of work individually, but think about that. We're working both sides of our ear training. We're learning to hear something and play it, but then it's in our head and we're learning to play it in a different key. And as that happens, think about all the additional great stuff that happens to our playing. We have to find fingering for it, kind of on the fly. I recommend that people, I'm going to play it in a couple different keys here, but I'm playing it in C now. Just play it at whatever speed you need to stand a chance to play the intervals by ear. And bit by bit, your brain starts to adapt to where you sort of understand this interval and, each interval in each key. And once that happens, like, a lot of the world opens up to you as far as you being able to play stuff either that you've heard like the masters play. I transcribed a lot of Freddie Hubbard. I transcribed a lot of John Scofield, a lot of Pat Martino, a lot of George Benson. There's something about the lines those guys had. And as the more I transcribed, the better I got at doing it quickly. I read an interview once with Chick Corea where he said he could hear 8 bars of a Charlie Parker solo once and write the whole thing down. And I never got to that level, but I got where I could listen to a couple bars and sort of know what it was, even if I didn't have my instrument with me, which is another. At first, I think you kind of got to have your instrument so that you can peck at things and try to figure it out. A lot of people don't need that. My son Ryan has a tremendous ear, and he never did any work on it. But so now you're finding it in all these different keys. If you're sort of new to your left hand, you got to add in, I'm not trying to copy Wynton's left hand on this, although that's a fantastic exercise too. You got to find these shell voicings with your left hand in the bargain. And so, but I recommend that everybody try this. Like I say, I found it frustrating when I first started trying to do it, but like I say, I would come out of that practice room after a couple hours of this and just say, this is what is gonna get me there. Jeff Covell was a fantastic teacher in every other way. He was a little bit, high expectations kind of guy. And I remember I looked him up 15 years ago, something like that. And Google pulled up ratemyteacher.com. And a lot of people were in the comments complaining that he was way too pushy on me. He was expected too much and stuff. And I just got on and left a little comment there that said, man, if you are not harder on yourself than Jeff Covell is on you, you should get into a different business than this. Because, only the maniacs will survive as far as becoming a professional musician. And I was kind of a maniac, so I made good progress with him. When I first got there, he almost had to take my fingers and, show me, this is what you do to voice an A9, chord in your left hand and so forth. really gave me like exactly the push I was hoping to get. If I had done nothing at Berklee but take lessons with Jeff Covell, I would have considered it money well spent. So Jeff, a quick thank you to you. Back to what we get out of this. It's important as we go to learn to play in different keys anyway. And now we've got these lines that lie beautifully in B flat, and we got to find them in F sharp, and that is really a great exercise, because the more we play, and especially the more we challenge ourselves with something like this, the better our fingering gets, the better able we are to finger on the fly. So let me play it a little bit. I wish I could play it with the track, like I say, but I'm going to get busted and go to the penitentiary or something for playing a Miles Davis track on my YouTube. And I'll play it in a couple different keys, just sort of see if I can still do that. So there it is in its original key. Let's just transpose it around a little bit and see if I can find it. Let's try C, maybe. Not too bad. Let's go somewhere. Let's go to E. It doesn't get any farther from B flat than that. I'll do it down here. Okay, I can kind of still do it. That the solo is burned into my brain just because I love to listen to that record. A couple other ideas while you have this, after you've transcribed it. And again, transcribing is 10 times better for you than buying it in a book and reading it. That's not the stuff, as I wouldn't be going to euphemize it. Couple ideas. Once you have it written down, or you could just memorize it, analyze it for things like approach patterns, bits of scales that they might be using, a hip arpeggio, Wynton is using a B flat arpeggio on the A flat 7, for example, which is a classic sound if it's an A flat 7 sharp 11. Sometimes you'll catch people substituting a little quick if you transcribe Oscar Peterson, for example. A lot of Oscar's stuff, I don't play like Oscar Peterson, but the transcribing that I've done, you often catch Oscar arpeggiating something, but it's not like, I was playing an A7 there, and Oscar's not going. He's arpeggiating an upper structure triad. stuff like that. And it's really interesting to see what people are superimposing. And finally, one of the best ways to find your own voice as you're playing and to take what you learn from one of the masters and kind of make it your own and then develop your own voice from there is to play motivically and pinch a motif from the solo that you're working on. Because however you bend it, that wasn't great motivic playing, but you get the idea. I'm trying to... stuff like that. Your variations are unique to you. Everybody's going to, take the motif and adapt it and play their variations. Everybody's going to play something different. Some people are going to play the same notes. There's a variation that uses the same notes but different timing. But that gets you pinching some of their vocabulary, but right away you're bending it into your own thing. So again, this kind of, if I had to do any one thing to learn to play jazz, it would be this one. And I would take a bunch of Keith Jarrett down. Geez, try to find that stuff. Herbie Hancock, yeah, if you can find that stuff, especially when by the Herbie's fifth chorus, if you can find that stuff in other keys, you're doing great. And of course the obvious question is, well, George, why didn't you do more of this? And then you would play better than Keith Jarrett. And yeah, I'm sure that's true. But I've got it. Instagram, I've got YouTube, I've got Facebook, I've got to get on TikTok, I've got social media obligations, that's why. Keith Jarrett didn't have social media, so that's why Keith Jarrett plays like that, and I play like this. And that's my rap, and I'm sticking to it. So I'll see you for the next lesson.